Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street.
Up to a 300% tax on dairy from Canada, 25% on beef in Mexico. They've been doing this for a very long time. You, many Americans, have just been gleefully unaware of this. Let's go to the trade war story. This is what everyone is talking about, and it's quite funny because Canada is trying to act like they have any leverage whatsoever. And Canada shouldn't exist. They should be the 51st state. They're a country rich in natural resources. They have no defense of which to speak as it relates to their neighbor to the south, the United States, and they talk so much crap. So let me be really clear here. This is not a new tariff battle war, if you want to call it. It's been going on for a long time, and we'll give you some examples of that. The United States, for the first time, is just starting to match fire with fire at this point. That's what we're doing. And we actually have the leverage to do so. Shouldn't the United States use its power, use its negotiating clout to try and benefit Americans? Instead, we've been bending the knee consistently. That's how you end up, for example, with 0 new native-born jobs in this country since COVID and 4 million for foreign-born workers. At a certain point, you say, that's not an accident. Also, why are we so opposed to, I remember when I was growing up, do you remember this? People were protesting the Gap. People were protesting Nike because, it's slave labor. Well, what happened to that? Now you're mad about punishing the country that has 9-year-olds chained to a loom for 14 hours a day? Shouldn't there be some consequences at a point in time? Well, now you're starting to see them. So this weekend, Donald Trump said that the United States, you know this, was going to hit Canada, Mexico, China, and he even mentioned potentially the UK with a series of, some would say, not even necessarily equal, but for the first time, tariffs.
Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. Something's going to happen there. But if they want to play the game, I don't mind. We can play the game all they want. Mexico, we've had very good talks with them. And this is retaliatory. This is retaliatory to a certain extent. Millions of people flowed into our country through Mexico and Canada, and we're not going to allow that.
And by the way, you're experiencing this live right now on CNN. Mexico's president says Trump agrees to pause tariffs for 1 month. They're starting to negotiate and get a table. Let's bring this up. It's 10:43 Eastern.
Market and economy breaking news related to the White House and its 2 biggest trading partners. Also, this morning, 5 people remain hospitalized after Friday night's crash of a medevac jet into a Philadelphia
All right, they moved on. We can hear what the developments are. So this is, again, we've said a negotiating tool, but it doesn't work unless it has teeth behind it. I remember one time they said, so is there anything that Canada can do or Mexico can do to stop these tariffs? He said, no, nothing at all, nothing. They start immediately, nothing. You got to start it. You got to count to 3, and they got to see the consequences. Yeah. So that brings us to this first installment, likely first of many, tariff time.
Time for some tariffs, 'cause you don't want to play nicely. Suck on some tariffs. Trump has got you by the testes.
Now, let me be really clear to set this up so you see this all in context. The asks from Donald Trump right now are not even necessarily related specifically to economic trade. Okay, so you think it's cruel. You think that we shouldn't do anything about the border. You think that these countries should be able to take advantage of us. Okay, but before we get to any of that, the asks from the Trump White House are pretty simple. Okay, stop undoing our work. Stop illegal immigration, drug trafficking at your own border, and stop, for example, the outflow of fentanyl that has been killing a record number of Americans.
There you go. Pretty simple.
Yeah. So these tariffs are really just based on, hey, look, Canada, you have the biggest border that we have with any country, of course. And, Steven Crowder has crossed over to the United States and Canada accidentally and not known it when I lived there. I'd accidentally be like, what? I'm in upstate New York. Where's the paintball field? Okay, let me go back to Quebec all the time. It's completely unprotected in some areas.
It's a town like that.
There are many towns like that.
The border's the line on the street.
And imagine this. You seal up the southern border, okay? And then illegal aliens or terrorists, by the way, many of whom have come from Canada, they know that it's easy to get to Canada and easy to cross that border because Canada won't do their own job. we're just hemorrhaging money. It's like you're not plugging the hole in the boat. Canada has to do its part. We get it. You brag about socialized healthcare, Canada. I know because I lived there for 16 years. The problem is you can only do that because you don't have to raise up a military to defend yourself and because you don't enforce your own border. Things, that affect countries to the south. So it's just about now. I get that you're friendly. Gee, gosh, gee, willikers. It's time for you to be a good neighbor. These are the asks. Stop illegal immigration. Watch your own border here. Help us out. China, crack down on the fentanyl. So the tariffs are going to take effect tomorrow.
For everybody else.
For everybody.
Named Mexico, who caved.
Yeah. Did they actually cave? They're pausing. They're pausing, which means there was, he had a talk with them.
I've got a list of what they said they're going to do.
Let me see what Mexico, this is live this morning.
Yeah. So number one, Mexico will immediately reinforce the northern border with 10,000 members of the National Guard to prevent any drug trafficking from Mexico to the United States, particularly fentanyl. Oh,
there you go.
Speaking our love language now.
Wait, hold on a second. They just had 10,000 members laying around doing nothing?
I didn't know they had a National Guard.
It's called the cartel.
Yeah. That means they were never asked before because they were able to mobilize 10,000 Guard members.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
there's a couple of other things here. So the United States is committed to working to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico. Okay, fine. We won't send guns down to you.
Got it.
And then our teams will begin working today on two fronts, security and trade. So they kind of keep going on. And basically, they've done what we asked them to do, which was not a lot. Number one was the only thing really that we're saying, like, hey, guys, with all this drug trafficking and stuff, if you could kind of like secure your own border, that'd be kind of nice.
Yeah.
We'd appreciate some of the, help from your people not getting into our place with fentanyl.
That call was incredibly uncomfortable because the president of Mexico had to keep appearances up, put on this strong feminist face, and then call and hear Donald Trump, not one more head on a godforsaken turtle.
But you know what happened? She called and said, okay, we're going to do what you've asked us to do. Now, will you promise to lift the tariff for 1 month?
Yeah.
And then we'll see.
This is how a leader leads. You may not like it, but can you acknowledge this is the first time in our lifetime that someone is doing exactly what they promised? If nothing else, this is not a surprise to anybody, both his allies and his enemies. So let's go to the reactions. First was Canada, where Trudeau, who's basically outgoing. There's no way that this works out for him.
What is he even doing now?
He said that Canada will levy some retaliatory tariffs and something gay. Sorry, right clip, and we always show the shorts because he went the extra mile. Here is the other right clip.
Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Well.
Our response will also be far-reaching and include everyday items such as American beer, wine, and bourbon, fruits and fruit juices, including orange juice. I also want to speak directly to Canadians in this moment. I'm sure many of you are anxious, but I want you to know we are all in this together.
And Toolman, can you go just to a screen grab of that, just to pause? I don't know why he has someone over his left shoulder who just exited a sauna, but this is why we can't take your world leaders seriously.
Well, that's the number one consumer of their beer, wine, and bourbon. He looks drunk. Look at him.
He's sweaty,
Hair's
hot,
a mess.
and red.
His tie's crooked.
Clean yourself up.
He's pissed at Trudeau. Look at him. He's...
Also, something that was kind of surprising, disappointing, the opposition leader, the conservative there, Pierre Poilievre, condemned the tariffs. But I understand they have to look like they're looking out for their country and they have a leg to stand on. They don't.
We must put Canada first. And that is why common sense conservatives condemn President Trump's massive, unjust, and unjustified tariffs, which will damage both American and Canadian economies.
Completely justified.
There is no justification whatsoever for these tariffs or this treatment.
Yes, there is.
Canada will never be the 51st state. We are an independent, proud, and strong nation.
You are not proud and strong. You have the queen on your money because you bent over and let the king pipe you.
You know what I heard? We're a big boy.
Yes, exactly.
Stop.
Daddy, wow. I am Canada now. Pull it up.
I'm a real country now.
You're embarrassing yourself.
I can't wait
doesn't make it so.
Yeah, I can't wait till they are the 51st state and we get to put the Curb Your Enthusiasm music on that.
Yes, exactly. You are not the 51st state by our grace.
Yes.
Okay? You gave up to the Crown of England. Do you have any idea what the United States would do to you?
You should have been the 51st state for a couple of hundred years now. When you join with your neighbor's enemy to burn his stuff down, it's not a cool move, okay? Here, really quickly, by the way, I thought leftist argument was that when you put tariffs on, it actually penalizes your own citizens, right? That's been their entire argument this entire time, that U.S. citizens are going to be paying these tariffs that we're putting on other countries.
Right.
If that's the case, why would Canada, in response to the United States trying to hurt their citizens, they say, penalize their citizens by putting tariffs on American goods coming into Canada?
Right.
The argument doesn't hold water. Are you guys seeing through this? It's obvious that is not always the case.
And it's going to hurt all of these countries a lot more than it will hurt the U.S., just to be clear.
It's negotiation. There's a whole lot
you
more
might
at
see
play.
some inflation on bananas or maple syrup or whatever, but you know what? Look, it's going to be much better in the long term, and we'll get through those numbers. The Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, urged the U.S. and Mexico to cooperate. I know now we have this response, but she said, we don't need tariffs. Come on, now we're both equals in this, except we're not.
La soberanía no es negociable. Coordinación sí, subordinación no. Le propuse al presidente Trump que establezcamos una mesa de trabajo con nuestros mejores equipos, los de seguridad y también los de salud. No es con la imposición de los aranceles como se resuelven los problemas.
You can't fire me, I quit. That's what it is. It's like you breaking up. You ever break up with someone and they're like, yeah, this isn't going to work, I'm leaving. You're like, fine, okay.
Yep.
I think I see what you're doing here. Also, by the way, she actually made sure that no Mexicans can ever claim asylum from a persecution-oriented government ever again.
A nuestros hermanos y hermanas mexicanos en Estados Unidos, quiero decirles que aquí está su presidenta y un pueblo entero para defenderlos. Si desean regresar a México, aquí los abrazamos.
Oh, it's tough to claim asylum when your president just said she embraced you and she hugged your kitties. You're not fleeing a persecution. It's not like Castro, like, we will jail them and no saxophones. They are saying, hey, you're welcome. You're just leaving a country that's crappier, okay? That is not a legitimate claim to asylum. There is now never a claim, an asylum claim from a single Mexican crossing here illegally. It's done. Thank you. If for nothing else, President Sheinbaum.
That's all they should do at these immigration trials is just play that clip right there. It's like, next person. Yeah. So by the way, before we move on this specific subject, Donald Trump did do a truth. And I thought...
On Mexico?
Yeah, I thought, your voice is warmed up. You can probably manage.
Let's see. All right. I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States.
What other border would it be?
These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed immediately, not latently, immediately, pause the anticipated tariffs for a 1-month period during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State, small hands, Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, a high-level representative of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as she is on her best behavior, and we attempt to achieve a, quote, deal between our two countries.
This isn't even a deal yet, though. He's not done extracting the right behavior out of these people.
Absolutely.
And right now in Canada, Trudeau's like, wait, we can do that?
We can get on the phone?
Hey, somebody get the president on the phone. I want a case.
It took what, 1 or 2 days? She's like, we're going to stand with our Canadian brothers. And then like a day and a half later, we reached a deal. Like,
they have no leg to stand on, and I'll get to exactly why. They know they've been doing this to you, the American consumer, for a very long time with their own tariffs. China said they're going to file a complaint with the WTO and some countermeasures. Who cares? They're tiny. Now, let me give you the clear picture references in the description, okay? Let's tell you what the tariffs are. 25%. They were going to be on Mexico and Canada, okay? You know that. Canadian energy exports would only see a 10% additional tariff.
Yeah.
China would see an additional 10% tariff, right, on anything I believe that we import here. Let me give you an example. Well, let me give you the numbers on these countries. Let's start with the example of Canada. Okay. The United States trade deficit with Canada is $55 billion. Now, who is this going to hurt more? The exports, the United States, they make up 21% of Canada's total GDP. The United States, our exports to Canada make up 1.1%. 20 times more on their side of the ledger. And they have been instituting tariffs on us for a very long time.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. Dairy, there's a Canadian tariff on American dairy. It's 240 to 298% once certain quotas are reached.
Yeah, and that's just one. There are lists.
There are lists.
Tariffs on from
so
the United States.
you're mad about a 25% tariff if they don't stop illegal immigration, for example, and fentanyl, drug trafficking. They're taxing milk more than double the price of, up to triple the price of milk.
Yeah.
We have been getting fleeced. This could all just, you know what? We're just asking, I think, quite reasonable things. Saying, hey, secure your own border, stop the drugs. But I would be fine with Donald Trump going, and no more taxing milk. Put Dairy Queen on your money. How about that? Right away.
Instead of a loony, it's a blizzard.
Yes, exactly. Turn it upside down. Wow, that's good. That's
Hey, whoa, who knew?
Mexico. Our trade deficit with Mexico is $157 billion. Okay? Their exports to the United States make up 34% of their GDP. Our exports to Mexico make up about 1% of our GDP. Now, we say this is incredibly unfair. How could you ever put a 25% tariff on this? That's wrong. Do you mean exactly like the 25% tariff that Mexico puts on American beef?
Jeez.
Ours, 7.9%. Hey, how about none of these tariffs are lifted until they're all equal? How about that? I understand you're going to say the American dollar is stronger and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. Up to a 300% tax on dairy from Canada, 25% on beef in Mexico. They've been doing this for a very long time. You, many Americans, have just been gleefully unaware of this. And so did I as a libertarian when I was, a later teenager until I grew up. China. Our trade deficit with China is $270 billion. Okay? Their GDP, 3% of their GDP is to the United States, significantly lower than the other countries, but still significantly more than our exports, 0.45% of our GDP. Let me give you just a general example. China, their tariffs on our goods are about 22%, 21 to 22%. Ours are about 19%. Let's even those out and make sure that you're not using one of the most effective biochemical weapons, fentanyl, to bring this country to its knees. I would be fine with an indefinite tariff until you give us the straight story on the Wuhan virus. How about that?
There you go.
Let's go to the EU. Okay? Our trade deficit with the EU, $213 billion. EU exports to the United States make up 3% of their total GDP. Our exports to them, 1.2%, significantly less than half. Here's an example for you, and it's different in different countries, and certainly all across Europe and Eastern Europe. The tariffs? Well, their tariff on American automobiles, 10%. Ours, 2.5%. That's a high ticket item. 10% is significant. Many people in the EU cannot get our cars. That's not even to include the additional taxes and tariffs because of international climate treaties that disproportionately harm our vehicles because no one in Europe can get one single V8. Now, maybe there is one V8, but the point remains their cars are for pussy boys.
At least Jaguar said they're not going to produce cars anymore for a little while. So,
well, after that ad, that's probably a good idea. They need a rebranding campaign.
Yeah. But look, all these countries are doing is protecting their businesses. They're protecting their citizens and their ability to have these industries. Essentially, that's what tariffs are going to do. They're going to create opportunity locally so that you can avoid the tariff and buy local, maybe pay a little bit less. There's other things that are going on too.
Right.
But the United States is not. When they do it, it's protecting. When the United States does it, you're trying to punish consumers. When they fund Airbus, government subsidies fund Airbus and compete with Boeing, and Boeing says, hey, that's not fair. They're like, no, that's just how we do it. You guys can't put a tariff on stuff coming over here. You guys can't do a kind of a trade war because of our funding of Airbus, and you don't fund Boeing the same way that we do. It's not fair trade. We just get screwed the world over, and we've had this power for decades, and we haven't used it effectively. Trump is finally going, you know what? I've got this. Let's just see what happens. We can't get screwed any worse than we are now.
I would say it's even worse than that. Not only have we not done anything, we have done some things. We've increased taxes, income taxes.
Yes, on
We've
us.
increased corporate taxes. So we've increased taxes directly on Americans while not applying any type of tariffs, levying any type of taxes against foreign nations that want to do us harm. Let's just say it evened out if your taxes got reduced by the number that we generate in tariffs. Hey, is that a net win? This comes from two different worldviews, right? The leftist worldview that you exist to fund the government. That's why your tax dollars exist. The other worldview is that the government exists to preserve the culture that has created what allows you to be the American taxpayer. Okay? Do you want to tax China more? Do you want to tax Mexico more? Do you want to tax Canada more? Or do you want to tax you more and American businesses more? We've tried it one way. Let's try it a different way. And the good news is we have a lot of wiggle room here because of the tariffs that have been applied to the United States. We are in the driver's seat, and we've been funding the rest of the world for a very long time. Just think about this first. It's like the term predatory lending. You go, what? That doesn't even make any sense. It makes zero sense. Predatory lending. You're going to target someone who can't pay you back as a predator to lend to them? Okay, let's just call you bankrupt lender. Oh, it's the United States government forcing you to do so and guaranteeing the loan. Okay, got it. This is what we're looking at here with this country. Hey, we look at prescription drugs. And people ask this as a slogan. Why do other drugs pay less for their prescription medication than we do here in the United States? Yes, let's ask that. Why? Where are the drugs developed? Where are they coming from? And then who subsidizes it to give it to their citizens? Who puts tariffs on it? Yes, it doesn't make sense for the nation that develops, creates almost all a significant majority of medical innovation, both with prescriptions and with medical devices. For crying out loud, when I was in Canada, they had more MRI machines in the entire state of Vermont than the entire country of Canada, which, for those who don't know, is larger than Vermont. Let's follow this to its conclusion. Why are they paying less? Because you foot the bill for the entire world. Why were other nations not paying their promised amount into the NATO agreement and the United States was paying double? And I know what you're thinking. Hold on. Are you lying to me, Mr. Crowder? Because isn't the whole purpose of a contract to keep the signer beholden to the contract? Yes! And they still weren't paying into NATO. And we don't need NATO. Let's be really clear. They don't care. They haven't been incentivized or held accountable to simply honor their words on the contracts, on the agreements that they have signed. And then they sign new taxes, tariffs into law to try and collect. They're collecting revenue from you, the American consumer. It's time to collect revenue from other countries, certainly other countries that will undo our work as it relates to the border. My prediction here, you see this with Mexico. I would be willing to bet that Canada falls in line by end of the week.
Yeah.
End of the week, they're going to have a conversation. There might be a pause.
Well, the tariffs start tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
So I didn't see it by tomorrow, especially with the news of Mexico this morning. They might might little tinkle in their pants.
Yeah.
I think Mexico saw an opportunity. They're like, wait. You get all these products from Canada. Have I ever shown you Mexican lumber?
Yeah. Exactly.
Look at this. I think they saw an opportunity, but also
I don't know how much there is.
Well, I'm just using that as an example potentially. Yeah, exactly. That is not
tequila,
a lot of forests in Mexico. Fine, I understand it, but the point is, I think they saw an opportunity in some other products. They're like, all right, fine, we'll be a better trading partner with you guys. I think Donald Trump is using this leverage very well. With China, with 10%, I think China responds if this becomes a bigger story and it starts to become a conversation about China because it's more of a power dynamic and losing face and things like that. And obviously, they could respond and say, hey, we're going to raise your tariffs as well. But with Mexico and Canada, these guys are going to fold, I think, very quickly because they're going to realize Trump is not playing around. Yeah. He doesn't need to get reelected. He also has a mandate and is winning at every single turn. It's not going to make him change any kind of direction to see the media come after him. He's lived that his entire political career. They've never liked him.
And by the way, I want to clarify. I misspoke earlier when I said the first time these kinds of tariffs on China. The first time, I mean the first president, because he did it in his first term. And keep in mind, those tariffs, some of those sanctions brought China to its knees before, a lab escaped a wet market. Some people have a theory on that. I think that it was just incompetence, but they were suffering. For the first time, they were brought to their knees. Remember, everyone said the next great superpower is China. There was one person who said no, and that was Donald Trump. And now we look at China very, very differently. There was a period of a couple years there with Biden where people thought maybe they're coming. No, they're not. They're not. And you can't have been a part of those campaigns protesting the Gap and Nike and talking about human rights and talking about slave labor and sweatshops and have a problem with the president asking these countries to start playing ball. Do you want to benefit from slave labor? Do you want to argue on behalf of the corporations who want to replace you with slave labor? Or do you understand that some changes need to be made? Also, let me tell you this. If people actually buy into this argument as it relates to illegal immigration, that these are people are doing jobs that Americans won't do. It's a really low-level, unskilled jobs, and they're taking just paltry wages. Okay, if your choice is automation or illegal alien workers? What do you choose? Comment below. I'll tell you what, I choose automation because at least automation doesn't rape. ChatGPT rape notwithstanding.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Got out of control.
We'll see.
We'll see what time tells.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of ChatHPV, but so at that point, hey, we're at the point where we can automate a lot of these jobs. Do we really need illegal? So then you solve the issue of the demand, right? 1.8 million new families, only 1.4 million new homes built. I believe in 2022, maybe it was 1.2. You guys can bring that back up. You solve that problem, and you don't have to worry about the jobs that Americans don't want to do being left empty. There are easy ways to solve these problems. It's just that the left consistently solves them at your expense. Mm-hmm. And you haven't seen these expenses. So if you look at this and say, well, hold on a second, tariffs, that could raise prices. Sure. But do you realize that you've been footing the bill for a very long time because of these tariffs in other countries? Whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's automobiles, whether it's beef, whether it's dairy. You know that, right? You just may not be used to, for the first time ever, saying, you know what, we're going to apply the same kind of trade rules. The United States is in the driver's seat. They have the leverage. And I would like to see our government continue to use it on your behalf. My prediction is that they start playing ball really quickly. They're not all going to be Colombia within 12 hours.
Yeah.
But 12 days, considering the decades of a piping that we have taken, I'd say is still worth the squeeze. This has been tariff time.
Time for some tariffs, 'cause you don't want to play nicely.
Hey, if you like this video, you should know that there are videos every day because they come from the full live show weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you want more of a sample, you can click this video next to me. I don't know what it is. Could be a change of mind. Could be a debate. It could be one of my appearances on The View. Have your puke bucket.